Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. We're currently on day 11 of Ukraine's special military operation to liberate the people of Kursk. And we can go straight to the military map. I can show you the minor map updates from the last 2 days. This is deepstatemap.live. Here's the map for August 16th, 15th, and 14th. Minor updates, but we do know these maps are outdated for operational security by about 2 or 3 days. But now that we're on week 2 of this operation, I feel like we can talk about and speculate what are the goals? What is the purpose of this operation? And the first thing you might notice is this highway going west-east. This is a very important highway for the Russians. They've already begun building new defense lines along this highway. This highway is about 40 or 45 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. So I don't think Ukraine is going to go any deeper, potentially, than this highway. If they could capture the highway at any point, this would cripple the Russians in the region. But they don't even need to take it. They just need to get within about 10 kilometers of the highway, and now it's within artillery range. They can start firing on convoys or logistics lines or any part of this road to once again cripple the Russians in the region. So as far as going deeper into Russia, I think this highway is the max at the moment, but Ukraine is happy spreading out west, spreading out north, spreading out south along their own border. So here's the prize. Here's the achievement here. When Ukraine was able to break through these 2 defense lines that the Russians had dug, this one was immediately on the border, the other one was 5 kilometers deep. They're now in the trenches, going both west and north, as well as south along their own border. They're in front of the Russians, they're to the side of the Russians, and they're behind the Russians in these trench networks. Oh yeah, these trench networks are also being manned by conscripts. People who don't really know how to fight. So Ukraine is going to take them. All the time and effort and money the Russians spent digging all these trenches, well, these trenches now belong to Ukraine. And Ukraine is going to continue spreading west to take the trenches and spreading south to take the trenches to create their own buffer zone to protect their people and their villages. And Russia can't stop them. Ukraine says incursion aimed at fair talks with Russia. We have absolutely no plans to beg, says President Zelensky. So the timing of this operation is not a coincidence with the November election coming up here in the United States. Ukraine wanted to do something bold and brilliant, as Senator Lindsey Graham said it was, to make the argument that we should continue supporting Ukraine. We have to get past the November election here in the United States, but the US Congress is going to have to vote again in December or January for an additional year's worth of military aid for Ukraine. So the Russians are paying attention to this, the Ukrainians are making their case that we should continue supporting them, that they can win this war. So if Ukraine can bite and hold a significant chunk of Russian territory, well, this changes the debate, the dialogue for future negotiations. Ukraine can now say, give us back all of our internationally recognized territory, and we'll give you back all of your internationally recognized territory. This is pretty brutal for Putin. Aside from that, let's zoom in on a specific section of the map. Ukrainian forces destroyed a bridge over the Sam River in Kursk Oblast. There's a video. I'll link this down below. Ukraine first struck it with 4 HIMARS missiles. It didn't bring down the bridge. They then launched a glide bomb that did bring down the bridge. It's in the video if you want to see it. Here's the picture of the collapsed bridge. And this is not a minor stream. This is a significant river that cannot be easily crossed without bridges. So Ukrainian forces have destroyed 1 of 3 key bridges in Russia's Kursk Oblast, complicating evacuations of civilians but also destroying Russian supply lines, their logistics. Here's a map. So the Ukrainians are here. This is the red. Zuja is just off the map. And they're currently sweeping west. And they're going to use this river, the Seam River, as a natural barrier to cut off the Russians and hold them back. So there's 3 bridges going across this river. Here's the yellow line is the Ukrainian border. This is Russia. So this river really should be the border, in my opinion, between Russia and Ukraine, but it's not. Ukraine can easily cross into this section of Russian territory, but if these bridges, all 3 of them, are blown or destroyed, Russia can't resupply or get to the other side to defend these villages and towns. So I can show you how this looks on Deep State map, and I think for fun we can even turn on satellite images. So you can see this winding river. Here's Ukraine's territory. These are these Russian villages. I looked up the population sizes, and some of these are about 5,000 or 6,000 people. And Ukraine is currently moving west through the trench networks, convincing Russians to surrender if they're willing to surrender, but if they don't, they will be destroyed. And I think within 2 weeks, Ukraine will control all of this territory, all of these settlements and fields. How much territory is this? And this is about 700 square kilometers. This is on top of the 1,200 square kilometers Ukraine has already taken in Kursk. If they just go west and just take this, they'll then be over 2,000 square kilometers of controlled territory inside of Russia. Here's an interesting article I'll link down below. This is the first 10 days of Ukraine's Kursk incursion. The Kyiv Independent went day by day saying what was done and provides video evidence if you want to relive it for yourself. But if this war was a Shakespearean play, I feel like we're on Act 4. I feel like we're getting close to the end game. We're 2.5 years into this war, and I don't think Russia has 2.5 years left of fight still in them. This is bad. CNN is reporting on the ground from inside Russia, embedded with Ukrainian units. It's just embarrassing. Ukraine's military publishes videos showing the first moments of the Kursk attack. This is the border crossing station, and Ukraine had drones in the sky capturing the complete video of them taking this border checkpoint. The video they released is almost 2 minutes long. I can't show combat, but I'll link this down below. And here are 3 Russian soldiers. This is a white flag, this is a white flag, this is a white flag. We have the moments when the Russians at this checkpoint who were still alive chose to surrender. They chose to live. They didn't want to fight anymore. And we are getting all the videos now from last week that were held back temporarily. This video is almost 3 minutes, and this shows Special Operation Forces capturing a group of Russians somewhere in the Kursk region. I'll link all these videos down below if you want to see the combat operations for yourself. This is a GoPro helmet cam video of Ukrainian defenders from the 80th Air Assault Division. This is the moment they captured a Russian T-80 tank, as well as some other combat operations. This clip is about 6 minutes in total. Ukraine forms a military administration in Russia's Kursk Oblast, according to General Syrsky. So they're setting up a government administration for the occupied territories inside of Russia. This is not some cross-border raid. Ukraine is going to hold on to this territory basically until the war is over. I don't think Russia can expel the Ukrainians. They just don't have enough reserves in them to get this done. This is how permanent this is looking. Ukraine's National Postal Service is ready to open in Suja. Ukraine's Postal Service is ready to open a branch in Suja to deliver parcels to Ukraine's armed forces as soon as permits, funding, and safety measures come through. Ukraine is opening post offices on Russian territory. And while Ukraine's military controls these towns and villages, they will be de-Putinized. These people will be given the truth that their government has been lying to them, really for 24 years, but any symbols of Imperial Russia and the Putin regime in Moscow, yeah, they're going to be destroyed and removed while Ukraine controls this territory.
Слава Україні, героям слава! Шо там, границы Родины священные, неприкосновенные нахуй! Сука, петух!
Ukraine will have its freedom, and it will have its security. Here's a statue that was in the center of Suja dedicated to Lenin. The Ukrainians obviously removed it. Statues to Stalin or portraits of Putin, they're all coming down. They're all going to be destroyed. So here's something that people are starting to reflect on as we're now into day 11 of this operation. There is one thing about Ukraine's offensive in Kursk which is mind-boggling. The Ukrainian army controls a large swath of the Russian land, about 80 small towns and villages. And yet, there is zero protests against the Ukrainian army on these territories. No peaceful protests, no armed resistance, zero, nada, nothing. When the Russian army occupied Ukrainian towns, there were always peaceful resistance and grassroots armed resistance that the Russians brutally suppressed. In these Russian villages, nothing. I've seen dozens of videos now of ordinary Russians interacting with the Ukrainian military, and they're cooperating, and they're happy to receive humanitarian relief. I guess the true believers all fled. They were willing to evacuate, but the people staying behind, they don't really seem to care who's in charge of them, as long as they have food and water, and nobody bothers them. The special military operation just got extended. Russian elites expected Ukraine's incursion to end within days. Now they're starting to panic. The Kursk incursion, Russia's blame game begins, and heads may roll soon. Rumors have begun to circulate on Russian media that criminal cases are being prepared against the generals who failed to prevent Ukraine's August 6 incursion into the Kursk region. So let's start with the guy in charge of the military. This is Belousov. He's still not wearing a military uniform because he has no real military experience, but here's his press conference from yesterday. Today, we are holding another meeting on ensuring the territorial integrity and protection of the population and infrastructure of the border subjects of the Russian Federation. As part of this meeting, today we will focus on the Belgorod region. Ukraine's military is pushing south towards Belgorod. It is planned to hear a plan on concrete actions, which has been prepared by the General Staff on additional measures. It is, first of all, a question of improving the efficiency of the troop command system, of assigning responsible officials, of the allocation of additional forces and means that will be sent to fulfill the main tasks. I will personally supervise the implementation of the submitted plan. Let's get to work. This man is doomed. I mean, he's better than Shoigu probably, but he's not going to be able to save this war. And the question, where is Gerasimov? I don't like speculating anymore about Gerasimov because people have cried wolf so many times in the last 2.5 years. There's been so many unconfirmed reports of Gerasimov's imprisonment, his death, his firing. But I think with Kursk, this is the end. I think with Shoigu reassigned about a month or two ago, Gerasimov is next, and I do think he will be reassigned. There will be an announcement probably in the next week or two. As far as what are they saying on Kremlin state TV, their pundits are now conceding that Russia may lose this war. They've been kind of talking around this the last couple months, preparing their people that everything is not going according to plan, and Russia's struggling. Everybody inside Russia knows that, but for Kremlin state TV to start openly talking about potentially they might not win this war. Putin is trying to prepare his people for less than the complete objectives of the SMO being achieved. So here's what this pundit says. His name is Shakhnazarov, and he was on Solovyov's show. I'll read what he said. We must always assume that we can lose. We can. If such mistakes continue to occur, we may lose. This is not defeatism. This is not alarmism, so to speak. This is just an absolute understanding of the price that we and our motherland will have to pay. Do you understand? And by the way, let me remind you that in 1942, during the most tragic days of the Great Patriotic War, Stalin gave a speech in which he said that we had practically lost. Try to remember those words he said then. That's when the turnaround happened. The turnaround happened in 1942 because of the Lend-Lease Act from the United States and us sending you hundreds of thousands of tons worth of materials you needed to fight the war. In addition, the British and American Air Forces bombing German factories every single night. That's why the Russians were able to hold on in 1942. Not because of Stalin's speech. Apparently, we need some very powerful incentives inside so we understand in our heads that what will happen if we lose and what will happen to us. Solovyov then jumps in. Humanity will not exist. Neither will our country, but neither will humanity. Our country won't exist. Our people won't exist. If they lose, he's, giving an insinuation that Russia's going to launch all of their nuclear weapons unless they're allowed to win this war. Massive haul of Russian POWs gives Ukraine new leverage to bring home its own. Ukraine's Kursk offensive has captured thousands of enemy soldiers in one of Russia's worst defeats of the war. Now Kyiv thinks it has negotiating leverage to bring home its own fighters. According to The Independent, Ukraine has captured around 2,000 Russian POWs in Kursk. As they're moving through these trench networks, they're trying to convince these guys to surrender. They'll be treated fairly, and they'll probably be exchanged pretty quickly. Ukraine doesn't want to hold on to them, and they just want their own people back. It's up to the Russians if they care about these Chechens and conscripts. So there's lots of videos, lots of interviews of these children, really. 18, 19-year-old Russian men who chose to live and chose to surrender. Here's a conscript who attempted to kill himself rather than being captured. He failed to do so, was found by Ukrainian forces, and they saved his life. He's now a POW, but he was willing to give this interview to tell his story about how he almost took his own life. How did you come to this? He then says, I got the grenade. He said, let's do it. So he was trying to commit suicide with a comrade using a single grenade. I've seen these videos online, guys. Russian soldiers are taught by their commanders that rather than being captured, it's better to take their own life. They put grenades under their chin, or they put grenades under their body armor in front of their chest to take their own lives. We hugged each other, said our last warm words to each other, and just threw it on the ground. What about the comrade? He has a leg injury too. At that point, I had already been close to death 3 times, so... Did you want to commit suicide? We were afraid to surrender. So Russian commanders tell their soldiers that if they're captured, they'll be tortured, they'll be brutalized, and they have no hope of being returned. This is the kind of motivation they give their soldiers to commit suicide rather than being captured. We didn't know what would happen here, but with the way things are now, I only can thank you for saving my life, for healing me. Who gave you first aid? First it was your soldiers, then a medic from our platoon. He gave us first aid. Your soldiers brought him. Your soldiers gave us water, cigarettes, medicines we had in our dugouts. They wrapped our legs, and so on. Yeah, I don't think Russian troops show this level of humanity and compassion towards wounded Ukrainian soldiers on the battlefield. Every day, Russia's losses continue. The Ukrainian MOD published this video of a Russian Panzer S-1 anti-aircraft system being destroyed. If you want to see the video, I'll link it down below. Secret Russian counter-drone electronic warfare system recovered by Ukraine in the Kursk region. On August 14th, a Facebook post showed the discovery of an unused Volnarens complex still in its packaging, complete with all the technical documents. So this is one of the top secret anti-drone EW system that Russia uses. And the Ukrainians found one still in the packaging with its technical manuals. So this is going to be sent back to be studied by Western engineers and scientists. And if they can find a vulnerability, find a weakness, Russia's tanks fleet-wide just got weaker. Russia says they repelled 12 missiles targeting the Crimea Bridge. Russian-controlled authorities claim a drone attack in Sevastopol and Kursk last night. Potentially, I do think Ukraine has taken shots at this bridge just to test Russia's air defense systems, but Russia has triple or quadruple overlapping systems protecting this bridge. It's the most obvious military target on the battlefield. So Russia was able to protect it last night, but there's always tomorrow. There's always next week. I do think eventually this bridge is coming down. Major power outage hits the far east of Russia. This is in Vladivostok, and they're without power for some reason. This is nowhere near the war zone. Russia is just collapsing everywhere. Their rail network, their utilities, their dams and bridges and infrastructure. It's only going to get worse by this winter. Russian food suppliers warn of price hikes up to 40%. Suppliers of bread, dairy, chocolate, and beer in Russia have informed retailers of impending price increases of up to 40% over the next month. In a single month, 40% increases. The price hikes slated for August and September are being attributed to a combination of high inflation, expensive loans, as well as the rising costs of shipping, personnel, packaging, and raw materials. It's only going to get worse, Russia. Putin knows this. I have to mention this story, but apparently Kadyrov got his hands on a Tesla Cybertruck and then mounted it with a machine gun. These are called technicals. I'm not going to play the video. I'll link it down below if you want to see Kadyrov being an idiot, but yeah, it'd be nice if Elon Musk said something negative about this, condemned this, but if Elon Musk has nothing to say about this, then that's a tacit endorsement of his trucks being used by the Russian military for absurd propaganda stunts. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine. Ukraine exports over 64 million tons of cargo through the Black Sea corridor over the last year. So the grain deal fell apart last June or July. Ukraine in August decided just to start doing it anyways. The first ship went through, and then once people thought it was safe, more and more came. So this volume includes 43.5 million metric tons of agricultural products. A total of 2,379 vessels have defied the Russians because Russia told them, we're going to sink those ships, do not go to Ukrainian ports. But 2,300 ships chose to do it, and Ukraine was able to get their exports out to Africa, Asia, and the rest of Europe. This is a huge win. The Biden administration considers sending long-range missiles, JASSMs, to Ukraine. Ukraine's Air Force could receive a significant boost as the U.S. considers supplying joint air-to-surface standoff missiles. What are these? This is the American equivalent of a Storm Shadow or Scalp cruise missile. I'm sure the United States has a lot of them. I think the White House was waiting for F-16s to arrive. More F-16s will be coming soon. And nobody would be talking about this unless basically the decision was already made. I do think Ukraine will receive these JASSMs. These are 370-kilometer range cruise missiles with 450-kilogram penetrator warheads. So it's only going to get worse for Russia. Ukrainian Olympic fencer Olga Karlan's saber sold at auction to support the military. I think I mentioned this 2 days ago, but the Ukrainian fencer who won gold, she's going to keep her gold medal. I think that's important, but she decided to auction off her saber, and it went for $250,000 US. So somebody purchased it for 10 million of Ukraine's currency. That's about $250,000 US. So it's a good story. And the money will be used to purchase automated turrets for infantry of the Ukrainian army. Final clip I want to share with you is of a first ever children's sleeper rail car going into service with Ukraine's rail network. This was announced by UNICEF. UNICEF launched first children's train carriage. The carriage is the first of 8 children's carriages set to be launched by the end of 2024. It is suitable for families with children of all ages, but specifically adapted for children aged 0 to 8 years old with busy boards, padded handrails, and changing stations. So it's just a train car you can book if you have children between the ages of 0 and 8. And I just wanted to share this video. Brilliant idea, looks like a lot of fun. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.